What's up, my good peoples? Welcome to the Be Transformed podcast, where we're talking about ideas that stimulate wholesome thinking into identity, purpose, vision, and action. I am James Anderson, and with me is Carolyn Anderson and Logan and Michelle Eaton. My good peoples, what's happening?
Excited for this one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we got the full crew.
Oh, yeah. When you're talking about marriage, you got to get everybody on board. Otherwise, we'll hear about it for the rest of our lives.
Gotta get both sides.
That.
No. You just got to get both sides.
Oh my goodness. We'll see if we all need marriage counseling after this, but yeah, so this is marriage part 2. You know, in the first part of marriage, we were talking about what it is and why it is, and you know, the fact that marriage is a representation of the kingdom, right? It's like a union and a covenant between a husband and a wife is a reflection of Christ and the church. And so our interactions, you know, the family you build, the life you lead, right, by living on purpose, all these good things demonstrate who God really is. And we talked about the power of the two becoming one flesh. And yeah, so in this episode, we want to kind of get into some of the practicals of marriage. We'll talk about, you know, the fact that marriage is a commitment. We'll look at some criteria to think about when you're thinking about a potential spouse, and then we'll get into some just kind of our, you know, some of our personal experiences in the first couple years of marriage, and you know, some of the challenges we had, and then, you know, how we eventually like overcame them, and you know, came up with a better way to communicate and handle problems. Yeah. So to start off with marriage, you know, when you're thinking about getting married, I mean, I know I was thinking back when I was young, for some reason, like marriage was something I thought about. It was something I wanted. And when you're thinking about marriage and when you're thinking about who to marry, you know, you want to understand that marriage is a commitment, right? What God has joined together, let man not separate. And so, you know, when you guys think about the word commitment, you know, how would you guys define commitment, or what does that mean?
Quitting is not an option.
Yeah, I think that's a good phrase, because when you think about there not being an out in a good way, you know, it's just like then you work through it. It's not just like, well, guess we tried. You know, it's just like there is no out, there is no quit. There's just like we're gonna get to the other side of this. So commitment is like we have to work it out, and you know, therefore, you know, you will. Yeah.
So I mean, like, commitment is a decision to succeed, and so because commitment is a decision, before you make a decision, you really want to consider the ramifications, right? And the consequences. Because like we're talking about, like, quit goes out the window when you commit. Because it's the decision that I'm going to make it to my end destination, regardless of the cost, the time, or the obstacles faced. So when you look at like the marriage vows, right? The marriage vows is a verbal contract. And then also when you get married, you have a marriage certificate and you actually sign a real contract. But this verbal contract is interesting. So Carolyn, you want to read those vows?
Yes. I take you to be I'm filling the name. I take you, James, to be my husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish till death do us part. Now we switched it up. I can't find ours. We said we were inspired by the original, but we made it our own. I can't find it. But at one point we were talking on an airplane, and the person next to us piped in and was like, what do you think about saying it like this?
I guess we were talking too loud.
Apparently.
We were a little excited.
We weren't looking for outside input.
What stands out as significant in these vows?
I think that till death do us part.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. The duration. This is the duration of the verbal contract. Till death do us part. And some of us, we get married young. We got married at 24. Right now we're 40.
Not quite. Don't call me 40 yet.
Oh, some of us are trailing behind here. You get married young, so death sometimes is a long way off.
Don't make it sound like a bad thing.
Oh, sorry. No, well, you just it's one of those things you want to think about until death do us part. But it's like you think about like the vows it's part of counting the costs, right? Because they're like from this day forward, for better or for worse. It's hard to kind of think about the worse or the the poor or in sickness or whatever when you're first getting married. And it's just like but the reason why this is in there, it's not because like marriage is terrible or everything's going to be hard, or it's just a fact. Like you're going to have challenges. There's going to be times where you feel like, being together is easy. And then there's going to be times where it's not as easy and where you really have to, like we were talking about last time, where you really have to put in there's discipline that you have to have to, keep your communication right, show up anyways, keep your mind right. And so looking at this is just the reality of the commitment is like, hey, for better, for worse. Because what happens sometimes is that people get into the worst, and everybody does. You get into the worst and people are like, well, obviously this just isn't working out. Maybe we made the wrong choice. And so when you misunderstand your challenges and you make incorrect conclusions, it can cause you to then make bad decisions. So commitment, like we said, is like there's no quit. Like it is what it is. You have no other option but to cultivate that bad boy, right? When stuff's going dry, you need to get out there and water it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. The better or worse. Like when you're saying those things, nobody's really thinking about how bad it could get or like
right.
the challenges, like, because you're bringing two people together. Each one is coming out of, living by themselves and having their own thing, their own routine, whatever. And then it's like, you combine all that. And then if you're pursuing purpose, there's going to be additional challenges. And then like the challenges of just living together. And so, yeah, nobody's really thinking about the worst. Like, okay, yeah, better, worse, richer, poor. Yep, sickness, health, got it. And it's like,
check. Let's get to the honeymoon, baby.
But it's like, it's a real thing where it's like, no, it's going to get worse. There's going to be times where it's challenging. And so, yeah, counting that cost of like, how am I going to conduct myself and how am I going to keep my composure when it does get worse? Not like worse, like everything's falling apart, but like just when it gets challenging, I think is a better term. Like when it's when everything's good and it's flowing, or when everything's challenging and things are blocked and you're just you're at a crossroad or whatever. It's how are you going to conduct yourself at that point?
Yeah, it's interesting. Even just like as I'm staring at these vows, it's like to have and to hold from this day forward. But it's like if you think about like to have and to hold in the better, in the worst, to having to hold for richer or for poorer, to having to hold in sickness or in health, to love and cherish till death do us part. But it's like, to have to hold, to love, and to cherish in the middle of all these, the different phases and stages of marriage, of where you're talking about, where the process of two becoming one.
Yeah.
Faux show.
Well, that's why you're saying it as a commitment, because it's that decision you're making. It's not the feeling that'll always, because in the beginning maybe it just comes naturally, and then later you had to work for it a little bit more, and so that that's that decision that and all those things and all the seasons and all the different challenges or ups and downs, that's the decision you're making. So it doesn't matter what the circumstances are. It doesn't matter what the situations or the season or whatever is happening. That decision doesn't change.
Right. And I think that's then what shapes what you do, right? Like if the end is already determined, which we're saying it is in commitment, right? It's so I'm for the good or the bad, the whatevers, the ups and the downs. If we're in it, then the only outcome then is to get through it. So if that's the case, then how you handle conflict and trials and whatever, if you know that the end is already determined, then you can get over things a lot faster. Because it's like it really just doesn't matter. It's like, oh, somebody said something stupid. Well, let's count the ways I recently just did that. Like it just doesn't matter. It's like if the end is to have and to hold, to love and to cherish until death do us part, then there's no reason to sit and marinate in the negative. Let's just move on because that's the whole point of marriage, right? If we go back and we look at like marriage and when God made Adam and Eve and God was talking about looking for a comparable helper. Comparable means able to be likened to another, similar or equivalent quality. And the definition of comparable helper, or like that word was broken down into help meet, which is a companion equal and necessary in partnership, right? Because a part of the reason why we're getting married is because of purpose, man. It's because we've got something to do, and linking up together is going to give us the ability to do more and go further and last longer than if we were just by ourselves. And so, coming back to why we're married, why, did we commit, and getting back into the purpose and the reason of it all. I just think that helps keep the perspective right. But if you don't have that commitment, then every time stuff gets challenging, it's like you're on the freeway and you're looking for the exit. But there is no exit on this freeway. So you just better put that cruise control on and keep on trucking. Bam. All right. So when we're talking about commitment, we're talking about living on purpose. We're talking about help meet, two people who are comparable and kind of make up, add a whole nother piece that was lacking. So when you think about, getting married and you think about like a potential spouse, you want to kind of think about like what kind of criteria is it that you're looking for? And when I think about criteria, when I was thinking about it, I was thinking about our culture podcast, right? I was thinking about our core beliefs, our values, and our standards, right? Like our non-negotiables, the things that make us us, right? Like our culture. Now, obviously, when Carolyn and I got married, like we didn't have any of this. I mean, we were on the pathway, but it wasn't defined like it is right now. But it's like Be Transformed exists to be a pathway to living on purpose, right? It's the ideas and the truth that lead to identity, purpose, vision, and action. Be Transformed is about conforming to the kingdom reality in every area of life. And when you accept these ideas and then you base your actions off of them, then your effort, your work, and your initiative then produces results that demonstrate who God really is. And that's what we are. And so it's like when you think about the criteria, I mean, if you're getting sold on this information, then it's like you want to think about, is your spouse, your potential spouse, also sold on the same ideas, right? Because if you're sold on the potential God gave you and the purpose and the vision that he put on your heart, and your life is committed to realizing that, well, if your spouse is like, hey, under the mind that we're like, oh, well, we're all weak and broken and you suck, we suck, but God is good. It's like if you're coming from two very different worlds, that's a huge red flag. And so, it's important to really think about the ideas that make both of you you, and do those ideas like line up with the truth. Because when you're hooking up with somebody, that's probably the wrong word, but when you're when you're considering being, yoked together, where the two become one, you want to make sure that the parts you're putting together mesh well. Well, when I think about the criteria, I think about, some of our BT values. And so we're going to go through these values, and we're going to see how they pertain to marriage. So Logan, you want to read that first one? Our first value is work.
Work. Creation is part of our divine expression. We were put on this earth to manifest the true reality of the kingdom of heaven, to infuse the earth with the function of heaven. We do this through what we create, build, and how we manage the gifts and resources God has given us. We bring kingdom solutions to real-world problems, and we do this with skill, wisdom, power, and tact.
Bam. And we make no apologies for it. Yeah, but work, right? I mean, work is a huge part of what we do. It's like the only way to turn your vision into a reality is to work it into reality through your action. So, I mean, work speaks a lot to how you spend your time, your free time, and focusing in on this direction, like not just trying to exist, but intentionally living. So work. All right, extreme ownership. I'm telling you right now, you don't got extreme ownership in your marriage, you in for some trouble. Carolyn, give us some extreme ownership.
The outcome is 100% on us. We own the full weight of responsibility for our life and its outcomes. We make no excuses. Whatever it is that we want to create, we put forth the effort to create it. We don't look for someone else to do the work. We do the work. When there is a problem, we own the solution. When something goes wrong, we do not blame other people. We look at what we could have done differently to have brought about a different outcome. Because if it is on us, then it is up to us. And if it's up to us, then it's on.
Then it's on, my good peoples.
Yeah, you had to say that part. Come out quite the same when I say it.
Then it's on. Why do you guys think extreme ownership is super important in marriage? Michelle, what do you think?
So you're not blaming your spouse for the mistakes that you made, like breaking the mower? Or
Yeah, but he drove it like 100 times before you, though. So
exactly. Just owning up to, I guess, I don't know. I'm trying to think about that extreme ownership. So what we recognizing.
I think you have to really take responsibility, I guess, and like look at what you're doing instead of looking what the other person's doing. So
Sure.
like instead of paying so much attention to what the other person did or could have caused the problem or whatever, it's like, well, what am I doing, or what could I have done differently? And yeah, it's like being uncomfortable, taking an outside look at yourself, like looking at
Sure.
yourself from the outside in.
Yeah. I feel like Carolyn and I were talking about something yesterday, and I think the question is like, she was asking, she's like, what am I doing that's then like creating, this negative outcome? And I was like, I'm not really thinking about what you were doing. I'm thinking about what I'm doing. Like, why, like this negative outcome, like what is it? What's happening in me that's creating this thing? Because just like you guys are talking about, when you point the blame, and that's super easy to do, right? Because sometimes people often say, it's like, well, if my spouse would just change, right? If you would just do this, then things will get better. And that's not extreme ownership. That's extreme blamership. and extreme blamership gets very different results. But it's like, okay, when you don't blame somebody, if something goes wrong, it's like, or there's conflict or whatever, it's like, all right, well, what is my what is my part in that? Like how am I not cultivating the conversation or whatever that's then creating this negative outcome? And what is it that I can do to start changing that? Because when I especially too, when both people are a bit at odds and both people are like pointing the finger saying it's your fault, there's no resolution, right? But if somebody stops pointing the finger and maybe there's then two fingers pointing at you and then you do something about it, you'll bring about the solution. And if right, the end is already determined, we already know that it's like, all right, we're in this together to have, to hold, to love, and to cherish, then let's get back to the having and the holding and the loving and cherishing.
I think when one person starts to take ownership, then the other person kind of can follow suit, where it's like, oh, like, okay, as soon as you get out of that mode of looking at the other person, then you can start to see your part.
Yeah, well, it's like it takes out the sting of offense. Like when somebody's like, you know what, this is my fault. But like, seriously, like I can see, like, here's where I went wrong. And here's how then this like created a bit of an avalanche. And it's like it de-escalates the situation. And then it's like it creates a whole nother pathway where before there was only like two people at odds. Now it's like, oh yeah, you know, we could walk together now. It's like, yeah, it diffuses it, and then it creates like a path that wasn't there before in all the animosity.
I agree with that, because I feel like Logan's really good about taking ownership, and that has helped me recognize taking ownership more. He's pretty good about that.
That's usually his fault. So.
Yeah, I have a lot of chances to do that.
I didn't mean it like that. I mean, like,
we're joking.
he's
we're
really
joking.
good about when we're talking about something, saying, yeah, you know what? Maybe I could have done this better. Or maybe I could have, reacted this way. And I was like, whoa. You know, at first, when he first said that to me, when we were having a conversation one time, I thought, wow, he just like is owning up to maybe this is him. And
But it's like the faster you can get through that, though, it's like all that kind of like conflict is preventing like your forward movement. And so it's like,
Right.
for me, it's just like, I don't want to be here because it's like stealing time, it's stealing money, it's stealing resources, it's stealing all these things away. So it's like, okay, yeah, great. Okay, let me look at this. What could have been done differently? Like looking at it kind of like as just a business, kind of like as a business decision, or like looking at it from like that standpoint where it's like, okay, how did this machine get messed up? How did this system get, like, what threw the wrench in? And like the faster you can get over that and get through that. So that's where like extreme ownership can come in and really help get back on track quick. Otherwise you're wasting all this time and money and resources and all that.
And emotional energy, yeah.
Yeah.
We all know we only have a little bit of that.
Some more than others.
Who cares? No.
I want to yell sometimes.
All right, Michelle, you want to read simple?
Sure. The ability to reduce complexity to its most basic form. The ability to prioritize what is most important in order to achieve the main objective. Simple is easy to communicate, easy to understand, and easy to execute.
The second sentence, it says the ability to prioritize what is most important. I think this right here is the power of communication. The ability to prioritize what is most important. I just think arguments come when you're not prioritizing what's most important, because it's like, is what is most important, like, that I win in this argument? I already know I'm right.
Which immediately makes you wrong.
But see, I'm just going to let that one go because I'm going to prioritize what's most important. It's like, Right. And if being connected, if moving forward, like you're talking about, Logan, like is what's most important, like getting mad and kicking the machine because the mower blade flew off, or the belt flew off, or something's broken, is the highest priority just to sit there and like say all kinds of dumb things and just kind of pout for like 6 hours? And that's not the right. I mean, if you got a field to work on, that's just not the most important thing. If we're trying to live on purpose and we already know that the end is determined, then who cares, right? Like if the priority is to stay connected, and then we don't need to use a ton of words, right? We can reduce complexity. We don't need to be, well, it's when you said this and I said that and you said this and we said, who cares? I'm sorry. And listen, I don't like to apologize. But yeah, the ability to prioritize what's most important. And Carolyn sometimes thinks this is a cuss word, but it's like using less words is like, okay. It's like, let's just move on. It is, who cares? Yeah. Anyways, simple. You got to keep it simple.
He's just going to breeze past that and keep moving.
Oh, what? Just prioritize it. We're all going to end up in marriage counseling.
I like the who cares response.
Yeah, he loves that.
Yeah, I think that's what she hates the most. Who cares?
It doesn't come across with
It's
the
like-
nicest.
Yeah, it's just like, let's not get emotionally connected to this thing. Like, who cares? Like,
Let's
it's-
not care is
it
more of it.
It like absolves offense. Like it erases the past. It deletes it.
Yes, Logan likes that. Who cares?
But you're not taking away like any significance from the thing. It's just like, what are we really accomplishing here?
It doesn't come across in a loving.
Are you prioritizing right now?
No.
Are you trying to make your point?
Yes, I'm trying. You keep interrupting
Oh,
me.
sorry.
No, the idea that it's like, behind it, like, does this really matter? Like, and that, who cares is just the way you're saying it, and you could take that and be offended by it. But when
Yes, you could.
when you get underneath it, it's just like, in the grand scheme, does this really matter? And like, I think when you can, step back from it. Yeah. So no, when that phrase is said, it's
Here we
maybe
go.
not the best phrase when you're having a discussion.
Who cares?
It's really not very loving.
Maybe it depends on the tone.
So don't pick that one up, Logan, and try.
Yeah,
to
let
already
us know how
has.
that.
Too
Let
late.
us know how that works. How many times you get slapped? No, I was kidding. Oh my goodness. All right,
we better
fine.
move on.
Yeah, we better keep prioritizing. Bam, right? It's prioritize in order to achieve the main objective, which is what we're after. Stay connected. All right, bam. Carolyn, discipline.
The decision to show up and put forth focused effort to accomplish something, whether you feel like it or not.
Oh
The
my
ability to
gosh.
show up time and time again. Discipline is the only pathway to achieving your vision, and it is the proof of commitment.
Whoa. How is discipline the proof of commitment?
Well, I mean, you can say you're committed all you want and say or speak all that, but it's like, yeah, there's no proof behind it. So like discipline meaning focused effort, repeated focused effort, I think is kind of like maybe one definition of what discipline is repeated focused effort over and over time. And so that then gives physical proof that you're committed to an end result or an end goal. But yeah, commitment is nice to say, and we can say that we're committed. And but yeah, it's like, I know there's probably people that have said that, but then if you took a look in their lives, that it didn't really show it that way. So the word or saying it doesn't really matter. It's what are you doing when no one else is looking?
Mm.
I like what you were saying there. Just that, I mean, the proof was already there, but just like, it's not just the words, and it's that there's actually action, and when you feel like it or not, that you put in the effort anyways.
Mm.
Because, when in the beginning, that I think that would be hard to imagine that you wouldn't always feel like it. But, as time goes on, it's like there are times where it is effort and it's work, and that's not negative. That's just like a reality that relationships require work. Like it isn't always just easy. It isn't always just natural. And like you have to choose, like we were just, talking, and it's just like sometimes there's like a little wall, and it's like you have to choose to go over it. Like you can't just sit on either side of it and be like, well, I guess we're just gonna like stay on our sides,
Screw you.
But yeah, it's just that it is the showing up
Yeah.
always, like, anyway, even if you don't want to, because your end result is the commitment of staying connected, and it's not just, and it is for that purpose, like to stay connected, not just because, well, we have to, like, it's
Kind of.
would you stop it with your
Commitment says I have to.
interjections?
Just kidding. No, but like, when I think about, I know we're talking a lot about conflict and stuff because, we've been married for a while, but no, but like, people talk about, it's like, okay, when you're following your dreams, you'll never work a day in your life again. I'd like to call BS on that, because what that doesn't take into account is your challenges, is your frustrations, is like your effort, the continual effort that you have, the discipline you have to keep showing up. It's not always like sunshine and rainbows to live on purpose, but that doesn't mean anything. It's not a reason to stop, and it's not something that will stop you, but it's like, the whole point is like, sometimes you're not going to feel like it. Get over it. Who cares? Like, do it anyways. That's the proof of commitment, right? Like the showing up anyways, the putting forth effort anyways, communicating anyways, keeping it simple anyways, taking extreme ownership anyways. It's like, is what must be done. That's the proof of commitment. It's not just the I'm stuck here. It's my responsibility to cultivate and water this garden until it's lush and beautiful, right? Quit running around with Roundup, trying to kill everything, and start putting down some fertilizer. Yeah. Discipline, man, it's necessary. Discipline, right, in order to put forth focused effort, means you have to continue to get like resold on the vision, right? Like you have to you got to evaluate sometimes. It's like, where are we going? What are we doing? Right? Are we actually staying connected, or like, are we getting sidetracked just by the day to day and the mundane or whatever? Sometimes you got to course correct a little bit and get back on. And discipline makes you do that because you can't stop showing up. Otherwise, the thing that you're trying to create will never happen.
Well, and it makes me think of the bigger picture. Like you're committed to something more than just like what's right in front of you. Like that's where that discipline is, because you can see, well, that's that vision. You can see that bigger picture, that bigger, commitment end result.
Right. Like Miles says, it's like, if what you see isn't what you saw, then what you see is only temporary. And sometimes it's hard to see, right? It's hard to see, you're walking up the mountain and it's like are you ever going to get to the top? Are you ever going to get to the other side of it? And sometimes it's really hard to see, but it's like remembering what you saw, like that picture on Google Maps. You're like, no, I want to go there. But you're on the journey and you're like, those pictures were a lie. But no, just re-upping, remembering where you're going, why you're going, where you're going, and then get back on that pony. All right, Logan, you want to read growth?
A commitment to getting better, the ability to read, learn, study, and self-evaluate in order to think new thoughts, take new actions, and create new results. There is no end to what you can learn and how skillful you can become at something. We grow for ourselves, for our God-given purpose, and for the people around us. We never arrive, therefore we never stop growing.
Yes. A commitment to getting better. This is huge, man. And this is a value that, you know, when you're thinking about getting married and when you are married, it's like you need to be committed to getting better. There is no benefit in a lack of growth. Because if you're not growing and if you're not getting into new and higher ideas, if you're not like resetting your perspective, then all you have is your past experiences, past memories. And it's like, if that's all you ever have, man, it's like you don't have a lot to build with. You know, as Miles said, it's like everything you've learned is all that you know, but all that you know is not all there is to learn. And it's, you know, is vitally necessary that we continue to get better. I mean, we are not the same people we were when we originally got married. You know, and I mean, like we're the core of us is the same, but it's like, you know, the skills and the understanding and the awareness that I have now, I did not have as much as what I had back then. And that you need to be able to say that because it's proof of growth. I think the other thing that's super important about growth is that you got to get into the same content. Because again, if you're in two completely different worlds, like maybe you're both sold on growth, but the ideas that you get sold on are not the same, like that'd be a big red flag. But it's like, you know, like Carol and I will read the same books, we listen to the same messages, you know, and then like we talk about the stuff that we're thinking about. And it's like we're constantly just trying to absorb the good and the wonderful and then chew on it so that it gets in us and has a positive impact on our relationship, on our lives, and everything that we're doing.
Well, and that's the intentional growth versus like, because, you know, I think there's times where we're not listening to the same thing or not reading the same books. And then sometimes your conversations can tend to be, you know, maybe just on the problems or maybe just on the frustrations of, you know, some circumstance you have or whatever. And it's like getting into the same things helps shape conversations where you're actually talking about forward movement and growth. And it gives you like good content. And, you know, that can be the case with any relationship. It's like if you're not getting into things that actually are making you think good thoughts, then you're just going to talk about life happening to you and the stuff that you don't like or is frustrating or whatever.
Yeah. No, 100%. It gives you... Well, yeah, because, you know, there's that... somebody said it. I'm sure multiple people said it, but it was like small minds talk about people. Medium minds... Average. Oh, I like that better. Average minds talk about events, but great minds talk about ideas. And it's like what you talk about matters. I mean, what you talk about matters. What you say matters. What you marinate on matters. And so getting into wonderful content can help shape better conversation versus like, what else are you talking about? I mean, all the crap that happened today that you didn't like. I know I can get lost in that. There seems to be a lot of stuff that happens.
Guilty.
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 No, I like that though. What you talk about matters. That is for sure something I feel like I've been trying to really think about and focus on. Really being conscious of what we're spending our time discussing and talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, because it matters, man. It matters where you go. I mean, you know, me coming home and being livid about something from work, it's like, one, it doesn't even solve my problem. And then two, all it does is just bring this like negativity to Carolyn. And there's no benefit to that. Mm-hmm. I once heard there was somebody somewhere. There was some tree in the front of their house and they'd come home from work and then they would shake this tree before they went inside. Like it must have been like a big bush or something, and they would shake it, and then they would go inside. But when they shaked it, they would shake out all the stuff from work, all the negativity or the whatever, the bad thinking, the bad emotions, shake it, and then they would go inside because they're like, I'm not going to bring this crap into home. But it's like I don't want two different lives. But it's more like, and not to get derailed on this, but I think sometimes, for me, like when stuff that bothers me, when I'm getting bothered, I'm more like a thermometer than I am like the thermostat. The thermostat's what sets the temperature. The thermometer is just what reads it. And so if I'm being controlled by my environment, if I'm being affected by my environment and it affects my emotions, it affects my thoughts, it affects my focus, right? So then I'm just wasting time now. Like my creative juices aren't flowing. They are. It's just going in a very negative, way where you have the negative speculation and all that stuff. But like shaking that tree, letting it go, disconnecting, detaching, and being like, you know what? Again, getting reset on what is the main focus. Because if it's not this, if whatever challenges I'm having isn't really the main focus, then what is the main focus? And let me get back into that.
Yeah, and ideally that starts to become more instant. Like you face a situation and you can shake it off in the moment versus having to carry it through your day and then okay, better shake it off before I see my family. It's like is that being able to better handle your environment and your responses so that that overall your demeanor in your life is coming from a place that's like peacefully handling situations and conflict, and like it's not sticking with you.
Yeah,
you're not picking it all up.
Right. Increasing that awareness that when you find yourself getting sucked in, you start to recognize it and then you get out. Yes. Any other thoughts on these values or on growth?
I think I need to get a tree to share.
Yeah, definitely don't go shake your beehives.
Let me shake
No, don't want to do that.
Other things will get mad then.
Won't be using those today.
Yeah. So, marriage criteria, right? And even just if you're already married, I mean, thinking about these things and how you can better apply them in your marriage, talking about them, reading them, eventually we'll make a page with our values on it. But yeah, getting into the good stuff, get you some. But yeah, when you're thinking about getting married though, you want to think about each other's core beliefs, core values and standards, right? You want to think about like who is it that you want to be? What is it that you want to create? Like what is the potential that's inside of you? Why were you put on this earth? Do you know who you are? Does your potential spouse know who they are, right? And do both of these pictures line up? You have to consider it because you're looking at joining forces, for life. And so are you guys trying to go in the same direction or are you trying to go in different directions? Because sometimes it's possible to want to get married so bad that you overlook the reality of the future and just kind of naively think, hey, it's probably going to work out. Don't get married under that pretense. When you get married, you better get married on purpose. And it better be with purpose and for a purpose. Because we were put on this earth to do something wonderful, right? There's a for real expectation of greatness over all of our lives. And we are responsible to live up to that expectation. And that you better believe. Bam. Well, my good peoples, thanks for kicking it with us. Until next time, peace.